Maccabees. So we talked about the concept of Emunah, the concept of Bitochen, So the Ramchal stresses the concept that Rabbi Hashem is Kadmoin, which means he always was, V'nitzchi, and he always will be, which means, and it simply means he's everlasting, he's permanent, he's everlasting. In other words, what he's saying here is that obviously there was never a time that you could say there wasn't God. No such thing. Everything has a time period that exists. There was a time that it didn't exist, and there will be a time period, obviously, that it won't exist because it'll decompose or disintegrate, and so on, But clearly, when we talk about the Rambam, we say that there was no time that he did not exist. It's a very interesting concept. How is it possible for there to be a being that there's no such thing that he did not exist? In fact, if you think about it, when you say something always was, right? So then the real question is, what about a cause? What brings him into being? What brings him into being? So you have to say, well, maybe something caused God to exist. And then, we say that cause always was, so then, what caused that? There's a problem here in that sense, But the Masham, really, when you say that he has no beginning, which means no end, he always was, what we're really saying is that he's uncaused. The interesting thing about it is that in this Bria that the Masham created, what's the relationship that exists between events? You have to look at it in a certain way,
Cause and effect?
Cause and effect, yeah. There's no such thing that has no cause. It doesn't exist. In other words, when you look at the relationship between events, right, there's always an event that's a cause, and there's always an event that's an effect. And then the cause itself is an effect of a previous cause, which is an effect of a previous cause. Obviously, it goes all the way back. We don't seem to have encountered anything that has no cause. That just seems to pop out of nowhere without any apparent cause. There is, however, a realm where a lot of the stuff is violated. It's called the subatomic realm, the realm of the atom. And there's a whole branch of physics that deals with this. It's called quantum mechanics. And they find at that level that there are particles that pop into existence from nowhere. Apparently they have no cause. They just are there without anything previous to it. And then they disappear. Again, without any kind of cause. So it's interesting that scientists has encountered a realm of existence that in certain ways has no cause. Either for its coming into existence, and it has no cause if it goes out of existence.
Maybe they don't understand what the cause is.
Well, that's not what
they're limited by their understanding too.
Yeah, but they don't say that. They don't say that.
They haven't developed the cause yet. There probably is a cause, but they don't know what the cause is.
We don't know. Quantum mechanics apparently violates many laws, or in a certain sense, quantum mechanics violates a lot of common sense ideas. For instance, one of the things it violates, for instance, light. Does light exist in time? And the answer is no. Light does not exist in time. That means from the moment it emanates from a star, as far as the light is concerned, it has no time. Einstein discovered certain ideas which in many ways make no sense. He discovered that the faster you travel, the slower is time for you. it's what does that mean? That means time, whatever it is, has a rate. So if you slow down time, then your rate of experiencing time also slows down. The faster you go. The question then, of course, is what's the relationship between speed and time? It's called time dilation. The classic example that they use is a rocket ship, that goes a standard, let's say 18,000 miles an hour. And let's say it goes to a planet, comes back, 30 years later. So the guy in that rocket ship is going to be 30 years older. Or rather, actually, really where it goes is, let's say there are two twins. One of them remains here on Earth, and the other one speeds off in a spaceship that approaches the speed of light, which is 186,000 miles a second. And let's say the guy comes back 30 years later.
The time here expands, time here past
Well,
25,000 years.
Well,
in relation to him.
yeah, so the guy who left, he comes back, let's say he left, he was 30 years past, The guy who comes back is only 30 years and 3 months. The guy who stayed here is 60. So there's a concept called the rate of the passage of time, which to us makes no sense. How could time slow down? Not only does time slow down according to relativity, that's really what it is, but things get shorter. It means a foot is no longer a foot if you measure it by our standards. The foot actually gets shorter. And you can't, in other words, everything that is traveling actually contracts in space.
The space itself is warped.
Space itself shrinks. What does that mean? That space shrinks, So even relativity makes no sense in many ways, you see. So a light wave, which travels at the speed of light, has no time. It slows down to such an extent that it doesn't exist in time. Which means that as far as the light wave is concerned, it could travel millions of years from a star to us, and it's here instantly. As far as it's concerned, no time has ever passed. As far as we're concerned, it has to travel from there to
It takes,
so on.
it takes time till it reaches us, no?
From our perspective, but from the light wave's perspective, no time has passed. When you travel at the speed of light, all time stops.
Why is that?
There is no svara for it.
Why should all times stop?
The scientist doesn't care about why, it cares how. What happened?
They say if you take a radio,
I just told you.
There's no
I
sense?
just, what?
There's no sense to it?
No, that's what it
Then how do
is.
you know it's true?
No. Well, however, it's been measured 1,000,000 times, and the theory of relativity is always gehalten. Let me tell you, it's true. It's been observed and measured in all kinds of ideas and so on. One of the ideas, if I remember correctly, is, I don't know if you realize, but a satellite that travels around the Earth actually goes slower. So therefore, that makes a big difference in GPS.
Didn't they originally, when they first started GPS?
In fact, what they did is they left an atomic clock. Now, an atomic clock maybe loses a second in 1 billion years. So one of those kind of things. Because you measure let's say, I think it's a cesium atom, the vibration of a cesium atom, which never varies, So anyway, so if you have an atomic clock that measures the vibrations, whatever, frequency, whatever, of let's say an atom, right, that's accurate, maybe it loses a second in 1 billion years, or 1,000,000 years, enormous amount of time, right? So they have one on the Earth, and then they send one up, in a rocket that goes, around, and when they measure the two, one of them has slowed down. Mama slowed down. And they can measure because obviously the amount that slowed down is so minuscule. But on an atomic clock, because anyway, it doesn't lose a second, they can measure. In fact, they rely on the theory, so they rely on this theory because if that's the case, if time is different up there than down here, so all the GPSs, they're all satellites, they made them, GPS, it measures where you are, it triangulates you, where you are based on certain towers, and it can locate you exactly within, I think, 10 feet on the planet. It's an unbelievable idea, that I think there's a certain amount of satellites that you need, 24 satellites. And they're all bouncing off waves, and they have towers here, so they can triangulate whatever mathematically that, let's see, okay, there's a signal coming from this, from you, and you're giving a signal to that and bounces off. However it measures it, but that's how they can measure. But if you didn't take relativity in account, you couldn't use it because there's a difference in timing and so on. You could be off by, let's say, 40 miles. It doesn't take much to be off and so on. But what I'm trying to say is that you find that the world of the atom makes no sense. Makes no sense. With an electron can pop into existence out of nowhere and disappear. Where'd it go? Nobody knows. But then the whole thing it's bizarre. People who study physics have a rough time when they get into this to get acquainted with this kind of thing. So even we encounter a place that has no cause, that can come in and out of existence without any kind of a cause or understanding, and so on, Or the famous Bell's experiment. And this is also incredible. If you take a particle, okay, and you split it, and one part of it goes off in this direction, and the other one goes off in that direction, opposite directions, at the speed of light, right? So this is going 186,000 miles a second, and that's going 186,000 miles a second, right? Now, there's no way that one particle can affect the other, because light is the fastest thing, and they're both going away from each other at the speed of light. Okay, so somebody once did, Bell, what he did is a particle, let's say an electron has a spin. It spins. And if one particle, you can reverse its spin, okay, let's say with a magnet, instantly, the other particle will reverse the spin also. Yet it's impossible, because how does one particle know that the other one's reversed its spin? There's no way they can communicate, because the fastest communication is light. But they're going away from each other at the speed of light. So when you alter the spin of one, how in the world did the other particle know? So that creates the concept of entanglement, that in essence, they're entangled. And somehow you can send information faster than the speed of light, because that's really what happens. That this particle, right, they're both going away, right, and this knows what the other one is doing, so obviously something travels faster than light that was able to reveal to one side what happened to the other. Nobody understands that, what?
It caught up with the one or the other.
No, it didn't. They both going away
It's like
forever.
it's like they were really never detached in the first place, like a ball continuum.
Yeah, so what the astounding theories, there are all kinds of theories that come out of this, is that, if two particles in some way have a connection, a relationship, what I'm saying, then one will always know what the other is doing, and so on. So what they come to the conclusion that every particle in the universe knows exactly what's happening to every other particle, because at the moment of the Big Bang, everything was together, so therefore everything was entangled at that instant time. So therefore, even though it's spreading apart, that means a particle at the other end of the universe, if you do something here, will instantly know what happened to this.
That's leading to that these particles may have a conscious awareness to change their behavior based on something external.
Yes, yeah, exactly. There are so many, so much bizarre things that they find in the world of quantum physics and so on. But I'm bringing it out here because some of the ideas that we attribute to the Rabbi Hashem, you actually find in our world. They make no sense, you see. In any case, so the Ramchal says that God was always will be, which means that the Rabbi Hashem doesn't exist in time. It's not that God is timeless, it will, was always. No. The real idea is that he doesn't exist in time. So there's no passage of time to God, whatever that means. And we don't understand what that means, of course. You know what I'm saying? What does it mean to exist outside of time? The problem we have, we don't even know what time is. What is time, really? We don't know. Nobody knows what this phenomena is, and so on. We don't even really know what space is. What space? Nobody knows. Look like this. What is this? There's nothing here, So therefore we find, that when it says Kadmoi v'nitzchi, it doesn't mean that the Moshe always was and always will be. No. He wasn't always and he always will be because he doesn't exist in time. So there's no beginning or end. There's no forever. Anyway, that's what Kadmoi v'nitzchi is. Okay? And then he says, V'hu shehimtzi umamsi kol ma shenimtzi b'mtzias, that the Moshe brought into existence. And he sustains the existence of everything. And this is God. The real question is, how do you do that? The concept of himtzi is the concept of a boirei. The concept of a creation is to bring, as they say, what the term is creation ex nihilo, to bring something out of existence, or rather bring something into existence, out of nothing. How does the Baruch Hashem do that? How can he bring something which does not exist into existence? Again, that also violates thinking in that sense. But the Baruch Hashem clearly has that power because before the Bria, there was nothing. There was nothing at all. There was no existence at all. So literally, the Baruch Hashem yanked out from somewhere, things, and but the truth is that the Baruch Hashem gave it existence. How do you give something existence? That's an amazing idea. How do you give something existence when it doesn't exist? Because what the Baruch Hashem did, not only gave it characteristic, essence, properties, characteristics, he gave it what's called existence itself. The real question is, where did the Baruch Hashem get it from? How do you give something existence? We can't do it. We need to take the raw materials, we can shape them, and make them all in kind of things. We can discover things, we can't give something existence. But based on what Ramchal says, himtzi umamsi means that the Baruch Hashem is able to give that quality called being. Not just what type of being will it be. It will be its quality, its quantities, and so on. But he actually can give it the quality and existence of being itself. How? But anyway, the Ramchal clearly says that, this is what the Baruch Hashem could do. And the Ramchal says that everything that exists was given existence. Everything. So we could say, therefore, that the author of everything that is God. He is responsible. That means nothing that exists independently of God. That's really what it means. Everything exists only because he gave it existence. Which bothers a lot of people. Because when you say that, what do you really say? That God created evil. Let's face it. This is the conclusion. That the Baruch Hashem created evil. Because if he didn't create it...
What's wrong with that thought?
Well, what's wrong with that thought? Who knows?
That's a pira. The Baruch Hashem had to present
No, but forget about
showcase of pira.
That's a motive. But the problem with that is how can a being that's all good create evil? Which is the opposite of good. Right? How can he create the opposite of good? How can a being that's all evil create evil? That's the all good. I say
All
evil?
good.
All good, yeah. How can a being that's all good, the Rosh Hashem is toiv, create evil? It's the exact opposite of what he is. Why would a being do that? These kind of problems.
The Rebbeinu Shalom has a definition. We can define the Rebbeinu Shalom by saying that he's good. We're defining the Rebbeinu Shalom.
Yes. Well, he says
We
he's
can
good.
define the Rebbeinu
Yeah,
Shalom.
the Rosh Hashem says tzaddik v'yosher.
What?
The Rosh Hashem says in Hazinu, tzaddik v'einovo. He's defining
In order
himself.
for it to be tzaddik v'yosher, we have to contrast it to something. If
Well,
it
it's-
wouldn't be evil, we wouldn't know what good is. Good
Fine.
can only be contrasted. Once we have a contrast, then we understand what good is. If there's no contrast, we don't understand.
Fine, but that still doesn't answer the question. Well, why or how would an all-good being create something like evil? It's a question. This question bothers philosophers 1,000 years. 2,000 years. This is an old problem of philosophy.
Shows that
You know?
he's in complete control even on that.
Yes. Fine, but why would he do that?
The evil,
Why would he create evil?
what we interpret as evil is an effect rather than a cause.
Well, then, evil is
Justice, I would
evil
say.
is a being. How would you by effect?
Yeah,
Either
but you
one, a
believe
cause
that-
or an effect is a being. Either the cause is a being and the effect is a being.
If you believe that he exists, right? If you come to that conclusion and
Yes.
you agree to that concept,
That
then
he
the
is.
So then the same way you believe that everything that he does is for your good. So it's not really evil. So it's not really a question.
Yes, but all I'm saying, but we see things which are evil. Yeah, so that's an answer that that's an answer that really, relative to us, it's an evil, but really it's a good. Okay, that's an attempt at an answer.
Okay.
Yeah. How do we know that? Where do you see that from Chazal, by the way?
We say that.
Where do you see that? Yeah.
We say that everything that's done is done for good. It's
Kol milsa di'ovid rachmana l'tavo.
yeah.
Okay, but really you have the Mishnah that says Kishem shemavochem al ha'toiv, mavochem al ha'ra. Just like you make a blessing on what?
Good.
On good, you make a blessing on that which is perceived as evil. I can ask why, so you can answer because that what you perceive as evil is really good. Fine. There's no such thing inherently evil. Although
The Gemara answers
Although
that
you
on
still
the
have to
spot.
grapple with that. Imagine a Russia, let's say Mao Zedong. The man killed over 100 million people. I mean, you talk about the greatest butchers of mankind. The guys who really qualify, the most evil people who ever lived. Mao is one. Hitler, Hitler's, of course, these guys are like, you're talking about Stalin. Yeah, you're talking about through the history of the world. You have many of the Caesars, Caligula. Yeah, you're talking about these guys were butchers. The only question is not do they kill, murder, the question is just how many did they get done. It took them a long time. But, so the question is this. Okay, we can assume, and this is true, in order to get into Ilam Habo, there's a threshold of toiv that you need to do. Very important idea. It's not like, just because you're born doesn't mean you get Ilam Habo at all, you see. But there's a certain threshold. There's a passing score. You get 65, you passed. Less than that, you're out. Okay? So that's a very important concept. That only a certain amount of people will get into Ilam Habo because they've passed. They've done a certain amount of good. Other people will not. So, of course, what that will do is change enormous amount of hashgacha. See, so for those people, let's say that there's a club called Ilam Habo. How do you become a member? So you have to do whatever membership requires, a certain amount of good.
How do you understand the Rambam that if you believe in your Gimel Ikrim, no matter how much bad things you do, you still believe in your Gimel Ikrim. You don't believe in your Gimel Ikrim.
I need to finish my thought, or I'm going to forget what I just said. Okay? I need to, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
As it is, I'm having, what did I just say,
A senior moment.
No, it wasn't, it was an interruption. Don't know if I flow, Senior moment's different. Membership. Yes, okay.
Sorry.
Membership in an organization. The organization is called Ilam Habo, right? There's membership requirements. There's a certain minimum you have to do that's called toiv. So based on that, Rabbi Hashem decides how he's going to behave to you. So if you've done enough where you can get Ilam Habo, right? Then all of a sudden the hashgacha or the anhaga to you is a certain type of anhaga. It's where they do not reward you at all because you can get an Ilam Habo. but they have to pay you back for all the good you did. Means if excuse me, if you're a member of Olam Haba, right, then they don't give you anything. Instead, they need to pay you back for all the evil you did. They need to atone. They need to atone for what you did. Because you need to remove the evil. Olam Haba is a place that only goodness can happen. There is no such thing as evil in Olam Haba. That's why people have to go through Gehenna. Gehenna. Why? Because Gehenna erases, put it that way. It's machaper, right? On the bad that you did, whatever is called bad, right? And then you're mukhan for Olam Haba. You have to go through what's called an expiation process. But that's because you're going to get Olam Haba. But what happens if you haven't done enough good? So let's assume you're not going to go to Olam Haba because you haven't passed the threshold. You see, this is what's worrisome. People think, I'm automatically going. No, there's a threshold. And the Baruch Hashem knows the threshold. Obviously if he sees you're going to score 64, I'm sure he's going to assist you.
He'll mark on a curve.
I don't know if there's a curve up there, I don't know if there's a mark on a... I don't think but anyway, so I'm sure he's going to push you in. But there are guys, for instance, so if you're not a Ben Olam Haba, for instance, let's say Hitler, right? So, he's out. He's never get Olam Haba. But I'm sure Hitler spoke nice to his mother. Maybe he fed his parakeet, his pet parakeet. So he avoided Tzar Baalei Chaim. I don't think it's possible for a guy to go through life without having done something good. Even though, a guy killed, because that man lived, 56 million people died. That was World War II. Because that man lived. Did you believe how many people, how many people could killed, whether by directly or indirectly? It's a whole, right? Yet he did something good, Maybe he saw some guy, in Austria where he was born and so on, some guy came over and says, listen, I have no money, give me something. He put his hands back and gave him $3. Whatever, right? That's a toiv. And we know, which is interesting, see, many people make a mistake. They think it's a balance act. You measure the good, let's say a guy did, let's say it's 50 points, right? And then you measure the bad, let's say it's 20 points. You subtract 20 from 50, you come out with 30 and that's what you get. No. That's a wrong cheshbon. The cheshbon is, whatever good you did, that counts for itself. And whatever bad you did, that counts for itself. They do not cancel each other.
Also, even in the bad, it's what the intention is, meaning...
Well, it's all considered, yeah.
No, but he says that if a person has a resentment towards the sin that he's doing, the amount of...
Yes, exactly. I'm not going into the weight of the sin. That depends on intent, circumstances, opportunities. Many things goes into the weight of a sin. But what will happen with a guy like Hitler, for instance, is he's got to be paid for the tithe, even though he won't get Olam Haba. So what's going to happen? So he'll die, and the Baruch Hashem they'll bring him back, right? And he will give him a good life.
How about the good
And in that life, he will get in that life, he will get paid off for everything he did good. Whatever, the Baruch Hashem knows exactly the payoff. Then when he dies, right, he's got to now undo all the evil, however long that's going to take, eternally, whatever, and he has to go through incredible yisurim for whatever it takes to undo the evil. And we have no idea how do you undo the evil. But it's not just the 56 million people the guy killed. It's all about their generations. What about all the people that would have been born from them? They're denied, The amount is staggering. We can't even comprehend the evil of that person. And so on, because the Baruch Hashem just doesn't weigh the good or evil of that guy. He weighs the aftermath, the consequences, and what could have been, etc. For us it's good because if you do something with David Toiv, then everybody who is influenced by that David Toiv, ad serv kol hadoros, until the end of all generations, you get the schar, which is really incredible. Because the Baruch Hashem, he looks what exactly did you do? Even if it's you were the indirect cause, you get reward. So what happens? So they bring Hitler back.
Why do you have to bring him back? Why can't he get his reward while he's alive?
Maybe he can. Maybe.
Russia
Listen. I don't really care where it does or when. I'm just talking about the fact that he has to be rewarded for the good.
Oh, okay.
I just gave an example.
He had his covered Hitler in this world.
Whatever. That's not the issue. That's not the point. The point is, right, the fact that he has to be rewarded for what he did good. But the question is, once that's over, then he goes into the mode of punishment and so on. Now, that's going to continue. We don't know, and we don't know, Gehenna and so on and so forth. The question is, okay, now what happens? He's punished, he suffers, and he actually he expiated in that sense, or rather he undid all the evil he did. What happens to the guy? He vanishes. He goes out of existence.
But after all, positive and negative.
So the question then is that toiv? It's from his perspective. Is that good?
No.
No. You see, that's why it's not easy to say whatever the Moshe does is good, because then you have to say it's a relative term, perhaps general, But if a person disappears for eternity and he's gone, he goes out of existence, right? To that person, it's not very good. So him, it's bad. But is that in the cheshbon that Moshe only does good? Look, listen. It's an interesting question. How absolute is good and evil in that sense? But anyway, so we do find, that the Rebbeinu Shalom, that he can perform creation, which means he brings something to existence, and then the question, of course, is, what does that mean? What does it indicate about him? Okay. So therefore, clearly then, if he brings everything into existence, what did he bring into existence? We know that he created things, objects, right? Objects. But if you really think about that, existence has an infrastructure. That's an infrastructure that we can see. You have what? You have God created space, which means he does not exist in space. So if the space that scientists think is 13.7 billion light years, a light year is, light travels in a year 6 trillion miles. So if the universe is 13.7 billion light years, so it's 13.7 billion times 6 trillion. That's it's quite large, right? It's quite large. But if we say that Hashem doesn't exist in space, means he's larger.
What's Pshat Kvodim Alayola?
That's what it means. That everything that exists, I mean, once we say that God created space, so clearly then, right, space, he has to encompass space. So if we say that the known universe is 13.7 billion times 6 trillion, which is a number which is, staggering and so on. So it has to be that God created this space, which is 13.7 billion light years. So he clearly is bigger than that.
But he
we don't think of God that way.
But he encompasses it, right?
Yes, but that's not my point.
So he is in space.
No.
Space is part of him.
No, not really. But I don't want to get into that. Just remember, God created space. He does not exist in space. Because before the creation, where was he? Obviously, if he had to bring space into existence, right, that means there was a time that space did not exist, which means he does not exist in space. And we don't know what that means. But, all I'm saying is that therefore that his existence encompasses the universe. So you're talking about a being that is minimally 13.7 billion times 6 trillion. That's an enormous being. I mean, I didn't know a being that way, that kind of size, and so on. But this is what we're dealing with. But in any case, he created space, of which we really do not have a handle on. The interesting thing about space, if you really think about it, is that space is really nothing. You go outside the planet and you're in outer space, and you go like this, what are you going into?
Can they discover dark
Doesn't
matter?
what?
They say that something like 90% of the empty space is a certain matter that we can't.
Yeah, there's dark matter and dark energy, but that's merely the objects that he would have created. Nobody knows what that is because it's not observable, whatever. But all I'm saying is that if the Bansham created space, correct? That means he did not exist. He does not exist in space. What is interesting when you think about space is that space really is nothing. If you go in outer space and you put up your hand like that, let's say you're in outer space, right? And you put out your hand like that in space, right? What's between these two hands? Nothing. But the interesting thing about it is that space, which is really nothing, extends in three directions. This way is nothing, that way is nothing, and this way is nothing. How could nothing extend in three ways? The reason why that's called three dimensions, right? We extend in three ways. You know what I'm saying? But the only reason why we can extend is because space allows us to expand into it. But the interesting thing about it is space is really nothing. Space is really nothing. So how could nothing expand in three different directions? Interesting. A lot of ideas that are very interesting when you think about them. Yeah. I don't know if I would recommend to think about this before you go to sleep. But these are things that people act. What?
How did you answer where God was if he wasn't created and he's not in space? So where was he?
We don't know. We don't know what it means to exist, not to exist. We don't know what it means not to exist in space, because everything we know of has space. Now remember, space doesn't mean, space doesn't mean, well, this object obviously exists in space. Space is, this object can exist because space expands in three ways. So this matter can exist in space in three different directions. You understand? Space to us is almost like an abstraction. So we say that the Hashem does not exist in space, which means he does not extend in three directions. Now, there are people who talk about multi-dimensions, fifth dimension, 10 dimensions, so on. We don't know what that means. How can something exist in 10 dimensions? Which way is it going? All we know is three, you see. But it's an interesting concept. The fact of more dimensions, which is something we can't even imagine multi-dimensions, let alone to imagine a being that has no dimensions. You see? I'm just bringing out the concept that the Bansham who created space clearly then does not exist in space. Now, what about time? What is time, really? We don't know. There's a concept called the passage of time. I would say time, if I had to define it, is the duration of matter. Duration. Matter has a duration. Existence has a duration. What does that mean, really, We don't know. Nobody knows what time is, really. It's amazing. But if God created time, clearly there was a time that time did not exist. And Dilation did not exist in time because he created time, and therefore he was before the creation of time, so therefore there was a time that he existed without time, whatever that means. You know what I'm saying? It's rather vague. But anyway, so the Bansham does not exist in space, he does not exist in time. But what else is there? Matter. The Bansham the Bansham matters, but he is not composed of matter. Now, nobody knows what matter is. Does it matter? That's your viewpoint. But nobody knows what matter is. Now, matter is composed of mass, but nobody knows what it is. Technically speaking, anything that has mass, forget weight.
Definition of matter.
No, weight
is a mass.
No. Matter doesn't have to weigh anything. Weight is a product of gravity. In a place that has no gravity, there's no weight. When you float in space, you don't weigh anything. In fact, they're weightless. If these guys floating around in the spaceships, they don't weigh anything because gravity somehow doesn't affect them because they're further away from the Earth. Yes? Weight is a concept. Weight is a relative statement between you, the force of gravity acting upon you gives you a certain weight. But if the force of gravity doesn't act on you, you don't weigh anything, but you still have matter. But if the Hashem created matter, then obviously he is not matter. So then what is he? He's not even matter. So then what is he? You see, I mean, these are tremendous ideas. But it's important to remember, when people think about God, they usually think about some invisible God who's a giant. But wait a minute, that's not what the Hashem is. He's spaceless, no space. He's timeless, no time. And guess what? He has no mass. He has no matter. So what are we talking about? Interesting. That's 3 ideas so far. That the Hashem is not. Okay, got that? Thinking?
Thought.
Well, thought is an act of the mind.
Well, what is that? Where does it exist
in the mind?
In relative terms. It has no space.
It's an act.
It has no matter. It has no time.
It's a process. No, it's a process of neurons. That's all it is.
That's not the thought itself.
No, so
it's
obviously,
the electrical, whatever.
that's it. Whatever, when neurons can act in a certain way that can produce a thought in your mind. What's a thought? It's a mental process. It's a mental process that to you experience it as a thought, but really it's an electrical mental process. That's really all it is. Except when you experience what's pain. What's pain?
If I could harness electrical impulses, I could create thoughts.
Yeah, if you knew exactly. What's pain? What is pain? Can you describe pain to somebody
An
else?
uncomfortable sensation.
No, that's the result of pain.
Well, that's what pain is.
No. In other words, if a person has pain, he's feeling very uncomfortable. Fine. That's it. I wouldn't know what pain is.
So then electrical impulses is a lot of mass.
The brain. It's hard to understand that because, what does this have to do with that? I'm just digressing for a second to answer the question. Because again, you're thinking about elusive states of matter. Neurons. Neurons going through some type of electric chemical process can produce something which we experience. But it's hard to connect it to, for instance, all of a sudden I remember something. Anybody tell me what a memory is? What is it?
Unless you say that is the category of ruchnius.
No, it's not. No, it's not. So what is a memory? What's a thought? What's a feeling? Emotion? Anybody here tell me what anger is? Don't tell me what happens when you get angry. You tell me what anger is. Nobody knows. I mean, you can't define anger except by saying that it's a certain type of experience called emotions. What's an emotion? What's pain? I don't know. We know what it is when we experience it, but can you tell me what it is? What it is simply is the brain's interpretation, right? The brain's interpretation of an event which you've just encountered, right? Which in some way is detrimental to your neurons, and and it produces electrochemical stuff, and you experience it as pain. But what is pain? And so on. But what was that?
It's all just an effect of the neurons. So what is Bechira coming to that?
So, okay. The concept of Bechira is who initiates this. But I'm not getting into Bechira, but that's the question of, who initiates whatever I'm doing? Do I initiate it, or does the Hashem initiate it? You know what I'm saying? In that sense, but I'm not getting into that. So right now we see that God has no space. People don't think about this. He doesn't exist in space. He does not exist in time. He has no mass now. That's very hard to figure out. No mass. You see? God is not alive. There are 7 fundamental infrastructural elements of the Bria. Matter, space, time, energy, life, consciousness, and motion. Got that?
No.
He's us. You get that?
Could you repeat again?
Matter, space, time, life, living, consciousness, which is higher than just living. Trees have no consciousness. Unless you talk to the guy who talks to his plants, basically, right? And then you have consciousness, what did I say? Matter, space, time, life, consciousness, motion. Oh, energy. Okay, yeah. What's energy? Nobody knows. I love these textbook definitions that say energy is the capacity to do work. It's not a definition, it's a consequence. It's not a definition. What kind of definition that? Nobody knows what energy is. Yet the universe is a fundamental law of physics that energy can either be destroyed or created, and so on. You know that what is energy? Nobody knows.
It's E equals MC squared.
Yes, that's
what it is.
Relationship.
But that's the relationship between, what Einstein was mechadish there, which is a tremendous chiddush, is that frozen energy, if you took energy and put it in a refrigerator, it would become matter. Matter is frozen energy. Unbelievable chiddush. And then of course the result is the atomic bomb and all that stuff. But what does that mean? In fact, what Einstein's chiddush is that energy,
Everything
right?
is energy.
Well, yeah.
Everything and anything that exists in the world is energy.
No, space is not energy. Time is not energy. Matter is energy. Matter, yes. So, what's life? Anybody know what life is? You scientists still cannot define life. Really? Is a virus alive or dead? Nobody really knows. Nobody knows what life really is. I mean, a virus can reproduce. Certainly can.
Does life have to have a goof?
No. A goof?
A goof.
Well, the ghosts are alive.
A neshama, our concept of a neshama
Is alive, correct?
But if it doesn't have a goof, it's not considered live.
Is it a malach alive?
What?
Is a malach alive?
No.
I don't know. I'm sure Gabriel thinks he's living.
Depends what you consider life.
That's exactly what I'm saying. Nobody knows really what life is. What does it mean to be alive? You know? So that's life. What's consciousness? Anybody know what consciousness is? You know? No. Nobody knows. I mean, we could define it and say it's a state in which you are aware. What does that mean? You know? These are so subtle, you know? And then there's motion. Why is everything in motion? You ever notice that? But the motion is not alive. Why? How do I know? Because life is a created idea. So does that mean God is dead? If he's not alive, does that mean he's dead? No. You know, God is not lifeless, but God is devoid of life, yet he lives. I mean, and so on, but he doesn't have life. I mean, it sounds interesting, huh? But think about that. Life is a created entity. So God is not alive because he did it. He was there before life. You know.
So he's
Is
more
God
than,
what?
He's more than alive.
He's not life. He's an alternative to life that we cannot understand.
He's the source of life.
Fine. So that's not what I'm aiming at. You see, there are concepts that we cannot grasp because God exists beyond the elements of what we need to do.
But the way you relate
Is God conscious? No.
But the way you relate
Yet he clearly relates to us as if he was conscious, because consciousness, is a stone conscious? No. So you can be matter without consciousness. That's true.
How could God not be conscious if he created everything? He did
That's the
unconsciously? He did it unconsciously.
No, you understand what I'm saying?
I mean, what's
Again, no.
Is he conscious? He has to be conscious. He did it with an intention. So
Listen.
that means consciousness.
You don't understand. If consciousness is a nivra, is a created thing, consciousness is a phenomenon, right? It's a phenomenon, correct?
Yeah.
But the phenomenon of consciousness was created.
Which
If
doesn't
God
mean
did
that
not
the
create
Creator
consciousness,
doesn't have consciousness.
wait, you're not.
Doesn't mean that the Creator doesn't have consciousness.
Listen to me.
He put into the Bria part of what his quality is.
No.
That's it. Why can't you say
Because
that?
nothing coexists with God. Nothing. Even the phenomenon that we are used to. Nothing coexists with Him. That's what Einoid Muvado is. Besides Him, there's nothing else. There is no other phenomenon that exists. So therefore, He is unknowable.
But we relate to the Dilation with all these.
Yes, that we do.
Not
Correct.
just Machshav.
With everything. But I'm just trying to.
And that means he relates to us.
Yes,
through
what I'm.
those Divroim
Yes,
also.
correct, exactly. Yes, He connects with us through these created things, but never think. See, people don't stop to think. God is none of these things because they were all created, which means He obviously is not. So the question then is, to what is He? If he does not exist in space, if He doesn't exist in time, if He's not matter, you know what I'm saying? If He's not alive or life, if there's no consciousness, if He's not energy, you know, and He's not in motion, because motion is something which was the concept of motion is a nivra. It's a created phenomenon. So then pray tell, what is He? Unknown. We're dealing, you see, we cannot abstract beyond the parameters of what we experience. And we experience all seven. But all seven are created concepts. So therefore He is none of these things.
Those are the boundaries.
But He's greater than these things.
Those are our boundaries.
And we can't go beyond those boundaries.
No.
But He is greater than all these things, or else He wouldn't be able to create it.
So what? Now what?
So
But He's none
it is.
of, nobody said He's not greater, but the real idea is that He's none of these things.
When Moshe Rabbeinu went up to Har Sinai,
Yes.
did he see Hashem, a manifestation of Hashem within the Bria? And
Within, correct.
when this was
He saw the manifestation of God within the Bria itself, correct.
When he brought this down with what we're struggling with,
Yeah.
did he see it clearly? Did he get a peek outside this, this goldfish bowl,
Nobody knows who God is.
You said
Nobody
before-
knours who God is.
You
Wait.
said before you looked into that tzilas through a glass.
No, but that's still,
That's what he saw.
what did he see? Shechina. The word shachan means to dwell. What Moshe Rabbeinu saw, right, is God as He manifests Himself to us, which is a created entity. God created a manifestation.
Did he fully understand this, Moshe Rabbeinu?
I'm sure he did.
Because he brought it down. So
He brought it down. I mean, we understand. He certainly understood it. What I'm trying to get across here is the separateness of God from us. That it's not just He's separate because He's up there. No, it's infinitely greater. That the fundamental elements or the parameters of what we experience as nivroim, as created entities, right, does not apply to Him. And therefore He's devoid of them. But then the question is, so what's the alternatives? We don't know.
It's interesting. Ramchal used the word Derech Hashem, not Yediyas Hashem. He said
Well, yeah, because I'm Hagar.
there's no Yediyas Hashem.
Well, yeah,
Only the
theoretically,
Derech.
yeah. Does everybody get this? It's a very important kind because, listen, I'm trying to give you an idea of depth. You know what I'm saying? But this is really what it is to understand.
That's one of the
beginning.
That's one of the Yud Gimel Animamins that we can't
Ain't no goof.
understand.
Yeah. Well, the Ramchal.
Ain't no goof. We can't understand.
Yes, that the Ramchal is trying to emphasize.
The ain't surah. He doesn't have a surah. He doesn't
Correct,
have
but
a goof. We
what
can't
yes,
understand it.
you're saying is very
That's
true.
why the Animamins.
Yes, but what I'm trying to go is to bring down the 7 parameters of existence, and that God is none of these, which places Him way beyond. You know, That's why I always get a kick out of, which is interesting, like the Catholic Church, They have big machlokes. Is God a male or a female? I mean, huh? The whole concept is so infantile. You're dealing with a being that doesn't exist with now parameters, which I mentioned are 7. So we don't know who he is. We don't know the alternatives they are so basic to us. We don't know the alternatives. Have I got that? I don't want to belabor the point, but this is important information. By the way, there are parallels. For instance, there is a particle that has no charge. Nobody knows what charge is. We say electron is negatively charged and a proton is positively charged. You ever see a magnet? There's a positive side and a negative side. That's because the particles are charged. What in the world is a charge? What is that? A charge? We only say there are 2 types of charges, and we know what the rules are. They, like charges repel, opposite charges attract, plus and minus attract, and so on and so forth, What in the world is a charge? Unknown. We just know that there is such a phenomenon called charge, But there is a particle, by the way, that has no mass. It has no charge, no mass. It's called a neutrino. It's an interesting particle. A neutrino is a particle that can pass through matter at almost the speed of light, and it is so small, it has no mass, that it won't hit any particle of the atom. It'll just go right through as if the thing was not there. In fact, it takes
How do they know
millions of... Well, because they have what's called cloud chambers. How do they detect any particle? They have their indicators, It's called cloud chambers, where they, all of a sudden, if the particle goes through steam, it'll leave a path. They have all kind of, if you ever seen the picture of the path of a cloud chamber, whatever. But I'm just saying, but there is a particle that has no mass, no charge. What is it? And it's so elusive that it will go through the planet Earth without hitting one particle on its way through. You say, how in the world can something do that? It won't bump into a proton. It won't bump into an electron. It is so elusive.
But it's detectable.
But it's detectable, which is interesting. Yes.
Well,
That's how they know this.
Which is unlike God. God is not detectable.
Correct. In fact, it's not only God that's indetectable or undetectable. The definition of ruchnius, forget God. God is not ruchnius, by the way. It's not spiritual. Because there is an entire realm called the spiritual realm that has rules and laws. They have their own parameters. The definition, Ramchal brings down, the definition of a spiritual entity is an entity that cannot be detected by any physical means. By any. I don't care if it's a...
Just like we have our seven parameters that we live in, so they're separate from that and they have their own set of parameters.
Correct.
Which God is outside of.
Correct. So in reality, there's 3 realities. There's the reality of God, whatever that means, and you're beginning to get a feel of that elusiveness of reality. Then there's a reality called the spiritual universe, which is inhabited by malachim. But malachim don't have our parameters, you see. In other words, you all have a different type of existence that has different parameters, yet it's not God, because even those parameters are created. And then you have our parameters. So the definition of a spiritual being is anything that you cannot detect. No spiritual being can be detected by any physical means, period. Which is interesting, because look at the physical universe, What's the most elusive physical thing that can be detected, but you'll never be able to see it? It's a light wave. Think about it. A light wave, which is really what's called an electromagnetic radiation. X-rays, light waves, radio waves, it's all the same concept. They're different frequency, and that's it. You can detect them, obviously. I mean, I'm looking at you, so something's bouncing off you, and Radios pick up radio waves,
Or a sound
right?
wave.
Sound waves. No, a sound wave is not electromagnetic. Sound waves are molecules
But you
that we
can't see
push.
it. You can't see it.
Sound waves. See sound waves.
Through the water, you can see it.
Well, a sound wave will push. Yeah,
Vibration
it can be
of water, you can see
detected,
it.
but it's not electromagnetic radiation. But anyway, I'm just saying, what's a radio wave? Can you tell me? It's a light wave. Is it physical or spiritual? Who? It's physical. It's astounding. You can detect it, but we have no idea what a photon looks like. And even a photon does not exist in time, as I said. Anything that goes at the speed of light is outside of time. You see? So forget about the ruchnistic universe. There's degrees of subtlety in the physical universe, which is very important. You see? Radio waves. They can be detected by a radio. But I've never seen a radio wave. Never will. Yet it's there and can be detected, but it's not spiritual.
You're a psychologist also, right?
I'm a psychologist
What
also.
about synesthesia?
Who?
Synesthesia.
What's that?
S-Y-N aesthesia, okay?
Synesthesia?
People claim that they're able to see colors when they hear sounds, that it emits color, and hear and see sound, perceive sounds and colors and things.
Well,
synesthesia.
so what?
Very rare.
Yeah,
So
obviously.
they
Yeah.
have a different set of
What that would mean, look, when a light hits your retina, how do you see? How do you see? Who? With your eyes. But you don't really see with your eyes at all. You don't see with your eyes. The brain. It's amazing when you think about it. We don't even know what's out there. I don't even know if anybody's here. I don't even know if people are listening to this shit. Let alone if you guys are out there. I have no idea what's in front of me. In fact, I'm trying to determine, do I exist? I'm working on that. Forget about if you exist. Right? So then, what am I looking at really? What happens is there's a light wave, a photon, that bounces off you and comes to my retina, hits one of the 125 million cones, and that creates a signal in a neuron. It excites a neuron, right? A nerve cell, right? And there's an electrical signal, believe it or not, that's created, right? And the one receiving, wherever that is, it's usually in the back of the brain, the occipital region, right? That region of the brain receives billions of electrical signals, because when I go like this, I've just trillions of photons that hit my retina in an instant. So the brain is able to interpret all the colors and shades instantly. We don't even we have no hasaga of the miracle. Of the miracles. I don't know if you realize, but in any given second, the human body is hit with, I forgot what the number is, 1 billion or 1 trillion sensations in any given second. You see? Because it's not sensations just from the eyes, the ears, the senses, and all that, from the body. So the question is, imagine if I can't filter them out, I'm finished. So what is the cerebrum or the medulla? One of them filters out almost everything and knows exactly what to let in, so then I can focus on that particular signal. That's incredible. That my brain can filter out, like trillions of sensations per second, so I can focus on you guys and give the shit. So what are you really experiencing? There's an electrical signal that goes through the neurons, goes into the brain, and the brain creates an image, which nobody knows anywhere what that is. And all of a sudden I see everybody out there. You're nothing more than an image in my brain. You guys don't exist really.
It's like when someone said,
Think about that when you go home tonight. You guys don't even exist. You guys are just nothing more than a figment of my imagination. That's all you guys are. I don't know the reality of who you are or even what you really look like, except my brain has drawn a picture of all you guys.
And the
Interesting.
only thing is,
Why?
we all have the same Messiah.
Same as talking. You don't even know if you don't even know if I exist. You know what I'm saying? You don't know. You only know what your brain is Messiah. It's astounding when you think about that. Anyway,
So that's what
the Rabbi Shalom is none of this. So you now have three distinct dimensions. You have the physical universe, of which there are many things that are different types of physical universe. Like I said, there's objects, physical, right? Then there's particles that are ghostly. You know what I'm saying? Then there's radio waves. It's not even a particle, or it's a photon. But you know what I'm saying? So the physical universe itself has many types of beings that we call physical. Then there's a spiritual universe that has a different set of parameters. And the definition of that is it cannot be detected by any physical means. In fact, when a malach wants to talk to you, right, he has to put on a physical garb. He actually changes the molecules around him. We don't know how he does it, you know. When Eliyahu visits you, for those who are zirka, the Gil Eliyahu, you're not talking to Eliyahu really. He's a malach. You know? So who are you talking to when you see Eliyahu? If you see him and so on. You're talking to a malach that is able to send out a select type of molecules and radio and electromagnetic energy that impinge on your eyes into your brain, and that creates of something that's there, but it's not there. He's somehow able to influence the molecules in the atmosphere.
So we do the same thing to him.
No. We do the same thing to him?
Yeah, why? You can't relate to physical. He's a mouse.
He cannot be detected unless
But
he alters the physical.
He has the same problem from his side.
That I don't know. I don't know.
I would think so.
I don't know if it's true. All I'm telling you, the Ramchal says that you cannot detect a spiritual dimension at all unless that spiritual being in that dimension chooses to be detected. But even when he's detected, he needs to alter the physical space, which is, you know, and that impinges on your brain, but you're not seeing him, you're just seeing him. It's like a piano. He needs to press certain keys, and all of a sudden you hear a tune. But what the mouth does is he presses certain molecules, or whatever, however he does it, right? And you see a being as if something would exist there. You see it. But, you know what I'm saying? But you're looking at, it's like looking at a piano playing keys. You ever see one of those things? And nobody's playing it. You ever see one of those things? You know, so there are pianos that way, it's automatic, you know, it's, you know, and so on and so forth. But it's the same thing. When you look at a malach, what you're really looking at is a piano playing keys, there's nobody there.
What about Shaitan, demons?
Shaitim is different. Shaitim they resemble humans.
But humans can't
In
see
three
them.
ways they resemble humans, and in three ways they resemble malachim.
But
Shaitim
no-
is a cross, it's a hybrid.
But you can't see them.
You can't see them. They can be invisible, but Shade can be invisible. They die. Certainly they resemble us in three ways, and they resemble malachim. They're really hybrid entities.
And according to the Rambam, they don't exist anymore. It's not exact.
Whatever, they have existed. But anyway, so therefore, what I'm getting out of here is to give you an appreciation of how different the Rebbe Hashem is from us. That even the 7 fundamental parameters of the Bria, he is devoid of. So therefore, we have no concept of who the Rebbe Hashem is or what. So when we learn he's Kadmon V'Nitzchi, yeah, sure he's Kadmon V'Nitzchi, that's the time, you know. Him to your motzi, and he created everything, you know. Okay, we haven't solved. The question really is, how does he give existence? Where do you get it from? I mean, existence is a certain quality that clearly the Hashem has to have. So we'll get into that. But anyway, this is from what we're gleaning so far about who the Hashem is, and therefore who he's not.
Is there any way that we're going to fathom, understand better his mitzvahs?
No. Ultimately speaking, let me put it this way, since you bring that up. What the Hashem did do is he created an entity, whatever that is. Okay, he created an entity, but he is not that entity. Remember, But what he did do, this is the beginning of the understanding of who God is, in the sense of who we experience as God. He created an entity that is a manifestation of him, but not, it's a created entity that he designates that that's me, that you can experience. Do you know what the name of that entity is? No, the Imam is a place. No. Again, let me say it again. Very important. The Baruch Hashem is not, you cannot experience him really, at all. So what the Baruch Hashem did is he created at first an entity and he designates that entity as him. And you can experience, well, I shouldn't say that. It's almost like, so it's what's called his levush, his clothing. It's like looking at a king. You imagine you walk into a throne room, right? And you look at a king, correct? And all of a sudden you look at the king and it doesn't make sense because there's a crown on top of the king's head, but there's no head. Yet the crown floats. And he has a royal garb, let's say, but there's nothing in the garb. There's no body there, you see? And from that space emanates a voice, but there's no person there, you see? So what can we say? That this person is invisible, and the only way to experience that person is via his what? His crown, his mantle, you know what I'm saying?
His levush.
His levush. That's really what you're experiencing. You can't experience the being, but you can experience him through his levush. You can locate him through his levush.
So why is the levush? Therefore, what the Baruch Hashem did is he created a levush
that he dons, and that's how you experience him. But the levush is a nivra. It's a created thing. It's not him. However, whatever that levush is, so the question is, what is the name? What is the name of that levush? That is the question. Anybody know?
Bria.
Who? No. Anybody know? Levush. The name of the levush is Ein Sof. The Ein Sof, which means the infinite, is not God. It is the levush. Can somebody experience the Ein Sof? No. The Ein Sof itself cannot be detected.
So how can
the Ein Sof, the Ein Sof itself is a levush. I hate to use the example, but it's almost like the king has undergarments. And then on top of the undergarments is overgarments. An undershirt is an undergarment. You don't see it. All you see is a shirt. You use that parallel. And then on top of the shirt, you have a jacket. And on top of the jacket, you have a coat. Right? Use that analogy. The Ein Sof is the undergarment, so to speak. It's the garment which is the closest to God, yet is not God. But it's the closest. The Ein Sof, is the first created entity of how God will relate to the creation itself. Mm-hmm. So in that sense, the Ein Sof is a created entity.
Is that the time of the
Many
Bible
people,
Bible?
What was that?
Is that the time of the Bible Bible?
No.
So what?
Wait. Got that? So the first reality that God created is called the Ein Sof. We don't know what that is, but it's a real thing. It's a presence. You see.
But if we have no way
the problem
to detect
is.
Has anyone ever witnessed the Ein Sof?
No.
So
it's
why
not
was it created?
Because that's how you start. That's how it starts. Creation has to begin from somewhere.
That's the Bereshit?
The first thing that God made was the concept of Ein Sof, or the being called Ein Sof.
Next thing?
Wait, That's the first thing he made.
Okay.
Creation has started from somewhere. So the first thing he did is what? Is he created a representation of himself. Or else you can't experience him.
Okay.
So therefore the Ein Sof is the first representation or manifestation or being that is created. Many people mistake. They think the Ein Sof is God. Wrong. It's not God. The Ein Sof is a being that is the Moshe's manifestation, as far as we're concerned.
Next.
Very important idea. Okay? However, the problem with the Ein Sof is something else. The unique characteristic, which I'll have to explain for next week, whatever, but the unique characteristic of the Ein Sof is what? Anybody know? The Ein Sof is called perfect being. It's perfect. That's what the Ein Sof is. The Ein Sof is a perfect being, whatever that means in terms of what does perfection mean. But it is perfect. Okay?
So for
One of the perfections of the Ein Sof is Einod Muvadoi. Nothing can exist but that Ein Sof. Because if something else exists, it would be limited by the space of that being, right? Because that being has a makom. So that limits the being of Ein Sof. So therefore, the unique characteristic of the Ein Sof is Einod Muvadoi.
to have self-awareness?
Who?
Self-awareness?
Yes.
Ein Sof?
Yes.
What was that question?
Well,
You're asking a very good question. That does it have self-awareness, or is it merely a conduit?
I mean, Ein Merwado contradicts self-awareness, really.
It's a good question. Really very good question. But it's almost like the Ein Sof is a conduit. It's a vehicle that the Baruch Hashem uses to connect to the Bria. You know what I'm saying? Does it have a consciousness of its own? It's too subtle. I don't know. Too subtle. You know. But whatever it is, it's a perfect being that is the representation of the Baruch Hashem. That's the first point of the Bria. It's the first thing that exists. Okay? But the problem in that Ein Sof is that it has a unique characteristic called Einod Muvadoi. It's perfect, and therefore it does not allow anything else to exist. Nothing else can exist at all. So therefore the Baruch Hashem creates a second phenomenon where the Ein Sof is able to restrict its presence and allow a zulosoi, an other, to exist. And the phenomenon that the Ein Sof can perform in that sense is called tzimtzum. Where it's able to contract. Tzimtzum means to contract itself, but it's not literally a contraction. What it is, it's able to create an environment that there can be a zulosoi, an other. Because the problem is the Ein Sof is Einod Muvadoi. So if it's Einod Muvadoi, besides that, there's nothing else, right? That means it's not that nothing else exists. Nothing else can exist. Because it's perfect and does not allow the existence of anything else. And therefore, the Baruch Hashem has given it a power of tzimtzum where it can actually allow an environment to exist in which an other can be. How it works, absolutely unknown. But tzimtzum is a phenomenon in which the Ein Sof can allow a zulosai. We use the word contraction, but is it a really contraction? No. It doesn't contract, but somehow it's able to deny its influence in a certain place, so to speak, and therefore allow a zulosai to exist. Got that? It's abstract. But the first entry of being is Ein Sof. It performs a tzimtzum that allows something others to exist.
But Tzimtzum doesn't go on the HaKadosh Baruch Hu himself.
No, the Rebbe Hashem is beyond all of this. He's not part of the Bria. You see what I'm saying? God is not part of creation, although it all emanates from Him in that sense. But the problem is we are so lofty and so high that you cannot describe these things because we have no concept of what these things really mean. Look, it's hard enough to understand, right, what? That a being doesn't exist in space or time, no matter, no energy, no life, no consciousness, no motion. We don't even understand what that means. Yet that is easier to understand than the Ein Sof.
So Zulasa is not a contradiction to God himself?
Zula, it is. It is a contradiction. But we don't know how what Tzimtzum does. Look, nobody knows.
It's not on God himself, it's on the Ein Sof.
We don't know how Tzimtzum works. We know the phenomenon called Tzimtzum. That's Kabbalah. We don't know how it works. How does an Ein Sof perform Tzimtzum and allow a Zulosai to exist? We don't know.
Where does Shem Havaya come from?
Later on.
Later on? So we
Later on.
We're down to a step much further down.
We dive into God, except we cannot experience that God at all.
We dive into the Kadosh Baruch Hu himself?
Yes. Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's always God.
Straight up to
Straight up. Yeah. We don't dive into any. There's no intermediaries. You know what I'm saying? We dive into Rabbi Hashem. Except, God doesn't hear. Right? Doesn't hear.
I understand.
There's no sound to Him.
We're directing, we have to understand that whoever we're directing,
But God knows what we're doing.
Yes,
God knows what
of
we're
course,
doing.
of course.
The feelings have to go outside the Bria. Because
Well, we don't look again. You know, look. This shear is a shear for the purposes of record. Does it mean we'll really understand? The answer is no. No, you can't. You cannot understand God. You cannot understand the Ein Sof. We don't even know the manifestation of God as part of the Bria. We don't even know what that means. Yeah. So in many ways, you need to hear, understand with limits, and move on. Because ultimately, we need to get into the costume of God, the levush. So Ein Sof is the beginning of that manifestation, but then the Rebbe Hashem is going to adapt a levush. Ein Sof being the first undershirt.
And then comes Tzimtzum.
Then there's a tzimtzum, and then it's further.
What's further?
Then, you know what I'm saying?
Then what's after Tzimtzum?
After tzimtzum is the Shekhinah.
So of course we believe in davening to Hashem. We'll have
Yes.
it. So why have a costume? Why not reverence His existence?
We might have a costume. The Rebbe Hashem doesn't exist in any of the parameters, so, you know. But, you know what I'm saying? So how are you going to experience? The problem is God wants you to experience God. This is the problem. The Rebbe Hashem wants you to experience God. That's what Olam Haba ultimately is. Olam Haba is a place that you experience God. See what I'm saying?
Until which point do you experience God? Until the Ein Sof or until what?
No. Lower.
So
Lower,
we go
but-
through all the various stages?
Yeah,
So
you
we'll
have
have
to hold
that
off
down.
on that. You have to hold off on that. But therefore, because the Rebbe Hashem wants you to experience Him, He needs to make that which is available to you or accessible. You know what I'm saying? Therefore, He's got to create something within the creation that you can relate to. You can't relate to Him. He's beyond the creation. So we can relate to Him. So therefore, the Rebbe Hashem creates an Ein Sof. You see? And you're going to connect with the Ein Sof. Even the Ein Sof you don't connect to. Because the Ein Sof itself is going to have a levush after that. You see.
Where is all this written in Isaiah?
Yeah, well, this is Kabbalah.
Isaiah.
No, Eitz Chaim. I mean, it's in the Zohar.
Arizal.
Yeah.
Which comes from the Zohar, no?
Well, yeah, or the basis of the Arizal.
So the basis of this is Isaiah.
Correct. Well, you know where you can see some of this stuff? Rabbi Elio. Antu V'loi B'chushben. When you look, you know, the Posach Elio. You ever seen the beginning of David?
Yeah.
Read that in English.
Spheres.
Well, but you see what he says, that you are there, but you're not part of the cheshbon. Look at his language.
I think we'd be kedai to go through that.
Well,
I think that would be
take
a
too
good
long.
thing.
But anyway, so what I'm trying to give you a feel of is this concept of what creation consists of.
Could you give us a rough outline until we manage to get to the Adamos Luvush?
Well, I am. I've
Well,
started.
there's Tzimtzum. What comes after Tzimtzum?
Time's up.
Let's give us the label. Let's just give us the label.
Time's up.
Come on.
Well, I'm very much encouraged by the fact that you don't want to leave at 11:02.
Just give us the label, so we'll leave 5 minutes later. Until the Adamos Lavush. What are the names?
You mean just titles?
Yeah.
Headings.
Well, you'll explain it the next session.
I put the cliff notes on blackboard.com.
No, let's hear.
Well, you have God,
Okay. Then,
whatever,
Then
whoever,
Ein Sof,
and you have Ein Sof,
then Tzimtzum.
Tzimtzum.
Then
and you have the, even Ein Sof, you have what's called the Or of the Ein Sof,
okay. And then comes Tzimtzum.
and then Tzimtzum again. Then you have the Cholo,
Yeah.
and you have the Kav,
Okay.
and the Rishimu.
Okay.
Then you have Odom Kadmon,
Yeah.
and that's the beginning. That's Olam Habo. Then you have the other Odoms after that. And you have the other four.
What is the Olam right after Olam Haba?
It's theoretically, yeah, to certain rules.
Where does the Lavush end?
The Lavush ends over there, Odom Kadmon.
By Adam Kadmon. That's
Basically,
where the
that's
Lavush
where it ends, yeah. Because that's the place we can experience God.
In Olam Haba.
That is Olam
In
Haba.
other words, you cannot really experience.
So what, when you're in Olam
the Lavush of
Haba,
God,
you're
you feel
really
Olam Haba.
experiencing, you know what I'm saying?
What?
When you're in Olam Haba, you're really experiencing what's called a kav, which is an aspect of God. But these are gradations in the experiencing of God Himself, you see. But ultimately speaking, keep in mind that He's beyond Bria. And therefore, that's why nobody knows who He is. Nobody can know, nobody will ever know who He is, because He does not exist in our Bria. He's outside of it.
Why did Rabbi
So
make
therefore,
it that way?
is that not why? No, that
He could have made it. We should understand
No.
that He exists.
no. You know,
His life is limitless. He could have done anything he wanted.
but that itself is a nivra.
What?
Anyway,
No?
that God's
Rabbi
koich is
Shlomo
an unlimited itself is
The
a
Rabbi Shlomo had infinite power. He could do whatever he wanted.
Anyway, so next week we will resume. How you doing, Ellie? What? No. I don't know what to do because...